Hello peeps, welcome again to my channel. Today the topic will not be about cryptocurrencies, it will be about creating your first Android app. So the first thing you need to do is to download a piece of software called Android Studio, and this is where all the work will be done. So just search Google for Android Studio. You can access the first link, download Android Studio and SDK tools. And we are actually going to download the latest development version. So we are not going to download, let's say, the stable version, because by the time that you learn how to create an app, probably the preview version will already be in the stable state. So let's go already for the preview version. So you can just search here for Android Studio Preview. And let's get this one. And let's go for the 3.2 Canary 4. And I will also teach you how to update Android Studio once the time comes and I'm recording a video and an update is available. So just click download and you just download the program and you just install it very easily. So while it's downloading, you can have a look at the instructions on how to install it. It's pretty straightforward. So if you want to learn how to program, I assume that it will be very easy for you to just install Android Studio. I never developed Android apps on a Windows machine. I always use Linux. So if I run across any issue, I will try to solve it and then explain how you can solve this problem, because it might be a little bit different from Windows and Linux. So now that it's finished installing, let's just unzip, right-click, extract all. So now that it finished extracting, let's just cut this from here and put it here. We don't need this folder anymore. And we go to the bin directory and we launch Studio 64. In my case, I have a 64-bit machine. So you just run Studio if you have a 32-bit machine, or Studio 64 if you have a 64-bit machine. So here in complete installation, I don't want to import any settings because I don't have a previous version. And now Android Studio will launch. So now we need to go through the wizard to set up the first time usage of Android Studio. So this you only do this once because you need to download the SDK for Android. This is what it says here. Welcome back. This setup wizard will validate your current Android SDK in development environments. So it's very simple, just next, next, next kind of wizard. Here you can choose the theme, UI theme, like the white background one, the default IntelliJ, or Darkula, which is the one that I usually use. For me, it feels that it's easier on the eyes, but you can choose which one you prefer. And now it will just install the SDK. So now just let it download the SDK and install everything. And it will take probably quite a while. So let's continue after it's done. So as you can see, Android Studio is installed, Android Studio version 3.2 Canary 4. This is the development version. It changes very quickly. It might have some bugs, but for the purpose of what we want to achieve here, it should be totally fine. So the first thing you want to do is to click Start a new Android Studio project. Application name, we can start with CoinMarketCap, for example. CoinMarketCap. Company domain, I'll put cryptominator.org. And we don't need C++ support and we don't need Kotlin support. For the purpose of this, let's call it course, I'll teach you how to use Java 7, because there is a very high chance that if in the future you work in a company as an Android developer, there's a very high chance that you will have to deal with Java 7 code. I could use Kotlin already, but Kotlin already introduces a lot of magic that might make it harder for you to understand some of the concepts. So we will just go with the default API 15 and it will run on 100% of the devices. So let's press next. And add an activity to mobile. Let's choose add no activity because I want to explain some things before. So let's press next. and it creates our project, and then we just click finish. So now you have the tip of the day that you can read and maybe learn a little bit more if it's the first time that you are into this programming space. And now you have Android Studio running. As you can see here, it's CoinMarketCap. This is our app. It's syncing. It's downloading Gradle 4.5. You don't need to understand at this point what Gradle does. What you just need to know is that Gradle is the software that builds your app and allows you to run the app. So let's wait for Gradle to download, and let's continue after that. So now that Gradle finished downloading, it's trying to build our app. And because it's the first time it's building, to create a basic Android app, you have a lot of dependencies on other things. And Gradle is also the software that deals with all this dependency management. As you can see here, I will maximize the window and drag this a little bit up. You can see that all these, what's called libraries, all these libraries are being downloaded because your project depends on all of these. And these are downloaded once, and then they don't need to be downloaded anymore because Gradle automatically checks which version do you need, checks if you already have it. If you don't have it, it downloads it. Otherwise, it just uses what you have. And after you have all the dependencies, it can build the project, and we can see the app running. So now we see here that the build completed successfully. So now there are a couple of things that I need to explain. So your app here, so you can open this, and we have here the play button. The play button is the button that you use to actually run the app. So let's press this. And if you see here at the bottom, error running app, default activity not found. So in the beginning, this might be very overwhelming because there are so many concepts, but it will be always the same over and over. So eventually you will understand all this stuff. So you don't need to be concerned about understanding all the details, because during the course of this course, you will just end up knowing all this stuff. So what's this thing about the default activity? So on Android, each screen is an activity. That's the technical term for one screen on an Android app. It's an activity. And if we remember on the beginning wizards, we said that we don't want any activity. So now we need to create our first activity. And if you see here on the left, you have the Java folder, and we don't have any code. And we have here an Android test and the unit test. We don't need to care about this right now. But the thing is, we don't have code to run. So the first thing that we need to do is to right-click here, New, and I will use File just to explain something, and enter a new file name. And the reason why I could have chosen Java class, but for you to understand how this works, I will create a new file. And this new file will be the name of the activity. So we will call it main activity, and this is very important. It's .java. And this is what tells Android Studio that this is a Java file. And the reason why I capitalized M and A is just a convention that every word is, the first letter of every word is capitalized. So let's press OK. And now if you double click here, you see that now there is an error, which means that there is content inside. If you double click, you have our main activity here. And this is where you start writing code. So the first thing we need to do is create a class. So don't worry about all these terms. These will come over and over. But the first thing we need to do is create a class. So we write class, which is a keyword in Java, as you can see because it's highlighted in orange, and we write main activity. And you see here that main activity is underlined, saying missing package statements org.cryptominator.coinmarketcap. The way to deal with these errors, usually you can just press Alt-Enter and it gives you suggestions. And in this case, we can set the package name automatically, so just by pressing Enter. And then we get this line here called package. You don't need to know what the package is right now. Let's assume that it's just a folder where classes go or your files go. And the other thing that I need to introduce now, but I will explain also many times over, is that we need to tell Android that this main activity is actually an activity from Android. And the way to do this in Java is to say that we inherit all the properties of an activity, of what an activity is. And that's done by saying extends activity. And now you see that there is a warning here. You can put the cursor here. The activity, main activity, is not registered in the manifest. And this manifest is exactly where we define which is our default activity. So if we go here to manifests on the left, we see here that we have an application, but we don't have any activity. So instead of ending the tag here, application, this is XML, by the way. I will also come back to this, but we need to, instead of closing here with the slash, since we have to put stuff inside, now we cannot use the slash anymore. We need to use an open tag and the ending tag. The ending tag ends with a slash. And here, and also one thing that you should realize that all of this, so Android Studio is very powerful and provides a lot of autocomplete. So it assumes already that I want to create an activity. That's exactly what I want. It assumes that I want to specify a name, which is also true, and I just press enter. And then I can just close the tag. And now you see here that it detects that main activity is not public. So we go to our main activity and we just specify here public. And now the problem is gone. But to specify that this is a default activity, there is something that we need to do. Don't worry, you don't need to memorize this. If you would create a project from scratch with the default activity already in the wizard, everything would be created for you automatically. But just for the purpose of you understanding that there is something going on here, I'm going to teach you how this works. So the way this works is we need to specify a way to tell Android that this is our default activity. And that's done. Notice that it automatically provides exactly what we want, which is this intent filter. And now we need to specify an action, name, and this action is main, which means that this is our main activity. And we also need to specify a category, which is launcher. Oops. By specifying this, the launcher, which is the piece of software on an Android phone that allows you to launch an app, it will know that this is our main activity. So now let's try to press play again. And now it says initializing ADB. ADB is the Android debug bridge, but we don't have any way to run this. So on a future video, I'll explain you how to actually run this on a phone. But right now, let's just go with the emulator. So we'll create a new virtual device, which will be a phone. It can be a Pixel phone or a Pixel XL, for example. XL, which is the phone that I have. Let's press next. And now we need to download an image for our emulator. An image is just a bundle of the Android system that we can install on our emulator. Let's download the latest one. Now we just accept the license. Next, we just wait for the download. So now that the image for Oreo is installed, and that means API level 27, you don't need to worry about these details right now, but because this will come up in the future, let's just press next. Startup orientation, let's just finish. So we don't need to go into a lot of detail here. And now we want to run the app on this emulator. Just press OK. Now you see here that it's building, it's running the emulator. And now our app runs and it's completely empty. So let's just add something here just to see how this works. Let's put the emulator aside. And let's go here to our main activity. So this is something that you need to understand. Very important. So when your app is running or when your activity is running, Android will call, let's call it a function on your code, on your activity. And this is called onCreate. So basically, Android is telling your activity that it's about to be created. And it's letting you run code that will execute when your activity is created. So you can start typing on create, and you see here a list, so everything is auto-completed. You can just choose this one, and the code is generated for you. You don't need to understand any of these details right now. This will come in the future. But now what we want to create is some kind of label. And a label on Android is called a text view. So we need to first create an object from this text view type, which in Java is done like this. And of course, I'm doing this a little bit quick because this is very natural to me. To you, it might take a little bit longer. You can rewind the video, do it at your own pace. But all of this will be explained in detail in the future. This is just for you to understand like the bare minimums of how you can display something on the screen. So the type will be text view. Let's call it a text view. Everything is auto-completed. You can just press enter to accept the default. Equals new text view. And now we pass here this. You don't need to understand this right now. This is actually the object that we have, which is our main activity. And now this underlying thing tells you that the variable text view is never used, but we will use it right now. We'll do set view. We'll set the text of this text view to hello coin market cap. Usually the first program that everyone writes on any language is called hello world. And we can actually call this, for example, crypto world. Hello crypto world. And now we need to say that this text view is actually the content of our activity. And to do this, we need to call a method or a function. In some languages, people call them functions, but in Java, it's called a method. Set content view, it's here, and we pass this text view. If you notice this yellow rectangle here, it says that string literal in set text cannot be translated. Use Android resources instead. We will also go over this in the future, but right now, let's just have this very simple code and let's press this lightning icon. This lightning icon means apply changes, which is a feature called Instant Run that we can use to relaunch the app applying our code changes. So if we apply Instant Run, it will compile this new code, and if we go here back to the emulator, we see that we have Hello Crypto World here. And I hope you understood more or less how it works to create a very simple app. This is an app that actually is running on the emulator. So if you go here, your app is actually here, CoinMarketCap with the default icon. You can just click it and it executes. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video and you learned something. I'm sure that if you are a beginner to programming, this is completely overwhelming. You have to go through this step by step, but everything will be explained in much more detail in the future so that you understand all these little things. But right now, you can at least have a very simple app. And in a future video, I will explain you how you can put this code online, because all this code that I'm doing here will be open source. I will put it online on GitHub. GitHub is a platform that is very well known for open source projects. So I will share everything with you, and I will also explain you how you can share and contribute for this project. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you liked this video. And if you want to continue learning how to develop Android apps, please subscribe to the channel and make sure to hit the notification bell to get notified when new videos come up. Also follow me on Twitter. Sometimes I post some links there. I will put everything in the description below, so make sure you check that too. So thank you very much for watching, and more good stuff coming soon.